Hi, I'm Yara Shahidi, and I'm the host of The Optimist Project. This is the podcast that asks, what gives you hope? Each week, I sit down with changemakers you may or may not know, from comedy, music, academia, and more, to uncover what inspires them to create a better tomorrow. Join us as we find out ways that we can cultivate optimism in our own lives. You can find The Optimist Project wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley's small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
To get the Crime Writers on After Show right now, go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, Hollywood wants to make a movie about podcasting's favorite true crime trio. But is the film shoot somehow tied to the murder of a stunt double? Charles, Oliver, and Mabel are back in season 4 of Only Murders in the Building. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca, and the cats might be here too, so stay tuned.
Wonderful. And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, the author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Hello, Rebecca.
So, Laura, one question.
Right.
We're doing this obviously on video in front of people right now, and it's very exciting to do a live version of the show, but did you or did you not spy on me when I was getting dressed just now so that we could be wearing the same thing? Yes or no?
Rebecca, I'm a private investigator. I know everything that happens in the town that you live in your house.
All right. Good.
You know.
That's good to keep in mind.
Just keep in mind, I sometimes see things I can't unsee. Kevin. No, I'm just...
What?
I think she's referring to our sex, Kevin.
Oh my goodness gracious! I thought this was
Kevin taking out the recycling in his underwear. I don't know.
Kevin sitting on that can playing Candy Crush.
What the hell?
She said she can see it into our house. Weren't you listening?
Oh, all the time?
All the time.
Oh, all right. Again, I thought this was a reference to the Exeter Lit Fest.
Oh, no. We had
I thought I was the worst until that whole thing happened at Madison Square Garden, and I realized, there are other people who
much worse.
Yeah, so much worse.
We actually have a question in the chat right now. You want to get that listener question going for us?
Here we go.
All right. Is it more or less stressful recording live? Chris would like to know. I don't know. Toby, what do you think? More stressful or less stressful?
I don't really think it's one way or the other.
Oh, that's a very Toby way to answer that question.
Sorry. I wish I had more. I think it's more fun.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it is sort of like an event for us too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just not the normal stuff.
What about you, Laura? More or less stressed out by this experience?
I think a little bit more, but I think it's good because it forced me to get all of my tech in the proper setup and come into this corner of my kitchen where I have my Only Murders sort of kind of little village thing behind me. So I had the appropriate backdrop. So I think now it's less stressful, but the setup was a little more stressful, but I feel good about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm only stressed about one thing when we do this kind of thing.
What's that?
Kevin, you put so much work into this. You mix the music in advance, you get the clips ready, you do everything. You're going to see graphics with little lens flares and shit. Kevin did all of that. And I just worry about disappointing you. I'm going to mess it up in some way. And you're going to be like, damn it.
You mean when I start playing the thing, you immediately start talking?
Yes.
Going, oh, did you make all this stuff? It's God damn it.
I saw it wasn't going in the mix. So, You're
not, you're solving for problems that are not yours to solve.
See, this is why I get more stressed. I worry about stressing him out and making you unhappy.
Don't worry. I'm going to I know what's supposed to be where.
Okay.
I know what's supposed to be in the mix and what isn't. And that's and I don't think we've explained it all to the audience.
Yes.
The podcast audience, what we're doing. We're just doing we're doing a live stream so people can watch us argue with one another about whether or not the music bed is in the right mix or if we've busted to a whole other live stream platform that will not be in the mix minus.
Oh, okay. I think people don't understand what any of that stuff means.
I know.
Mix minus.
All I did was all I told you was just read the script.
Okay.
Just pre-read the script.
I did.
Leave everything else to me.
I pre-read the script.
Okay.
And there's no crime of the week,
on that.
so I won't even mess that up.
You cannot mess that up, apparently.
I very often, audience, don't read the crime of the week in advance. Only because Kevin once told me it's funnier when I don't. Mm-hmm. But then Kevin sometimes do you read the script before we do this? I'm like, I don't know which to do. Both seem like good solutions to me sometimes. Yeah. All right. So, Kevin, what do we have coming up on future editions of Crime Writers On?
Yeah, on Monday's show, we're going to be talking about the Netflix film Woman of the Hour.
Oof.
And then later in the week, on Thursday, we'll be talking about the podcast Kill List.
All right. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, I was so scared during Woman of the Hour that I hid under a blanket the entire time we watched it.
Spoiler alert, I hated Kill List. Moving on.
Really? This is very interesting. This is going to be a good taping tomorrow.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So, Toby, this is the day that Rip Current drops, right?
Yes.
The time-space continuum is all off for all of us.
Totally throwing me off. I'm like, no, that's tomorrow. But I see what you're saying. Give me 2 seconds. I just have to. There's a subscription.
You don't have to get too into
thing.
It. You can just be brief.
Oh, okay. So this is it's getting kind of intense. Sarah Jane Moore accuses her mentor in the radical underground scene of being a snitch for the police, when in fact she's the one who's actually the snitch. Mm-hmm. And it has major consequences for both of them. And this is sort of the time at which she starts to realize that she's probably not safe.
All right. So, Kevin, we have a very important thing to discuss on this episode. Should we get to it?
I would like to do that.
All right. I think we should drop that first clip right now. Leading off.
So what's next podcast-wise? Charles, you mentioned a cold case?
Oh, please. If it was interesting, it wouldn't be cold. Now, what we need is a hot, fresh, dead body, preferably right here or very near to here.
It's true. We've been very lucky with people dying in our building.
Yeah, but it is kind of a flaw in our business model.
Mm-hmm. A Hollywood studio courts Charles, Oliver, and Mabel to make a star-studded movie based on their hit podcast. But Charles is shaken by another murder in the building. His longtime stunt double, Sazz, was killed in his apartment by a sniper, and her body burned in the incinerator.
What do I do? I can't wash her down the drain.
Maybe we could get a wipe.
Yes, a nice, respectful wipe.
Sazz can't end up on a wipe.
Well, you could just leave them like that. Then you'd have permanent Sazz hands. I'd like to take that one back.
Before she died, Sazz had been poking into something about the first season of the podcast. The fatal shot came from the west side of the Arconia, occupied by an odd collection of residents with a secret to hide. Writers, directors, executives, and stuntmen also make up the suspect list. Now the podcasters are on a new case. What bombshell did Sazz uncover, and who was willing to kill to keep it quiet?
I don't know if Sazz was the target.
Well, be honest. Do you think someone over there could hate me enough to try and kill me?
Don't make her answer that.
Look, if this is the part where you tell us not to investigate, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, I know. After 3 seasons, I got that.
So that means it's season 4 of Only Murders in the Building, starring Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. This time, the Emmy Award-winning series deconstructs the murder mystery through the lens of film. The movie forces Mabel to ponder how the world views her and leads Oliver to re-examine his relationship with Loretta. Meanwhile, Charles is racked with guilt that his old friend may have died because of him. As usual, Only Murders delivers sly humor, a touch of pathos, and crackling performances by the leads and many guest stars. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about very significant plot points from season 4 of Only Murders in the Building. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes. for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So, Laura, when the Arconia opens up for a new season of this show, I kind of feel like I'm coming home a little bit. What about you?
Absolutely. I think the Arconia is really like a character in this, in the way that it feels like here we are with all of our quirky little neighbors and characters and the bellman and the cranky lady in the elevator. And, you know, we've got our trio who we've come to get to know, and just sort of the general scenery and the feel. So I think this season, when we find out, you know, at the end of last season that there's going to be like a Hollywood angle, I was like, uh-oh, are we not going to be in the Arconia? But we are. So I'm glad for that. But it's just, it's like the perfect complement of cozy with a little bit of dark humor, a lot more, and just a lot of really fun, quirky characters and pets.
So, Toby, we don't often review multi-seasons of things unless like there's a reason, unless we like really feel strongly about it. Things like In the Dark, for instance, make that cut. And so does this show. But I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, we're not reviewing something different each and every time.
Well, I think it's harder with this one than it is with some of the others, like Ozark, for instance, where there's so much change between the different seasons that, you know, it just feels like you're talking about a new show each time in some ways, even though some of the characters carry over. Whereas with this, and this isn't really to say, this is more sort of saying that it's tough to keep reviewing it rather than there's anything wrong with the actual show. Because there is a certain sameness to all the seasons, right? I mean, and it's good. And I think you guys are kind of alluding to the fact that it's nice to come back to this setting, these characters who, I mean, I think it's kind of remarkable that while the actual sort of tone of the show doesn't change that much, you still want to find out what's going on with the characters. The characters are still compelling. They grow in these ways that are sort of a little more subtle than you get on most like multi-season shows. But it does make, at least for me, when I was like writing down to do my notes, I started doing notes. It's like, oh, I could have said that about the second and third seasons too. Oh, I could have said that about all the seasons too. I guess in the end, you know, it comes down to like these little details or just sort of repeating how you kind of like the feel, you like the setting, you like the characters and all that stuff. But to be quite honest, like, I don't know how other people watch this, but actually like following the clues and like trying to figure out who did it and stuff, like I don't pay any attention to that stuff hardly at all.
Me neither.
Like it's just about like sort of hanging out with these people who you've come to enjoy. But for me, it's a little bit harder to figure out how to find something sort of interesting to say in this fourth season that hadn't already been out there to say in the first three.
Kevin, how much do you feel similarly or differently than Toby? Because the thing that they do differently every season, and they did it this season, is a new angle, right? Mm-hmm. First season was about making a podcast. You know, last season was about a play. And this season they've gone in for this film angle. So do you think that works?
Yeah, I mean, I do. It's if the point that you guys are making is that this is really about the three characters, and that's who we love, because I certainly do, and I would love to talk about the way those characters have grown in those performances. But I do like that it remains like very entertaining for me. I would love to have more sort of the insidery, self-aware podcasting sequences, but the show is really about murders, and it's not about podcasting. So one of I think the smart ways to keep it fresh is to continue to, you know, be all about the murder mystery and find new ways of doing it. It isn't like say, oh, you know, we're no longer doing a podcast. That's an important framing device. But like what they did with Broadway, and while there are things that are probably, and the movies this time, and it looks like we're getting set up for some film noir, femme fatale kind of mystery for season 5. I like that the team keeps tackling the idea about a murder mystery in these different ways that we come to consume them. You know, it's not so much like whether or not the thing that you pick is the right thing. It's about whether you can execute it. And I think they continue to execute it well. And that's why I enjoyed this season.
Well, talk a little bit about the performances, because you talked about just now how they have grown into these roles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like these three lead actors, right? They are big personalities, right? But they really do disappear into these characters, right? There are just very little moments that sort of remind you who these actors are when they step out. Like I was in the last episode when they're on the edge of the building in Martin Short's Meringue where he does this. It's like, oh, that reminds me of Ed Grimley, right? He's got a little bit of that. And there's a scene where Steve Martin is, or I should say Charles, is trying to like suppress his rage, and it's very physical, and it reminded me very much of like Steve Martin's early work, right? Where it's a lot of slapstick and a very physical comedy. If you think about All of Me or The Jerk, you're like, this is the same guy, right? But it's not like Ice-T and SVU where you're always watching, well, here comes Ice-T, right? To me,
Ice-T as Finn playing Ice-T.
Yeah, they really have become these characters. And my last thing here, when the Eva Longoria character, when Eva Longoria delivers the line as Mabel at the very end when they're shooting, and it's the same line that Selena Gomez gave in like season 1. It's like, it wasn't even close. Like, it wasn't funny at all. It was a tiny bit funny.
Isn't it insulting to flirt now?
Oh, who the hell knows? Suddenly it's rude to tell a secretary she looks pretty in a pair of slacks.
Nope. No to that whole sentence.
Compliment her purse. If it isn't on their body, you can like it.
No, again, to every word that's coming out of your mouth. I'm glad you're doing this. Being alone in life is making you weird.
Thank you.
And cut.
But it was nothing like Selena Gomez, the way that she hit that.
Yeah.
The way that she plays off of the two of them and like her sarcasm and her embarrassment by them.
Suddenly it's rude to tell a secretary she looks pretty in a pair of slacks.
No, to that whole sentence.
Compliment her purse. If it isn't on their body, you can like it.
No. Again, to every word that's coming out of your mouth. Listen, I'm really glad you're doing this. Being alone in life is making you a little weird.
Thank you.
She just really nails that. And when someone else just tries to read that, it's like, no, what the three of you got is pretty unique, and that's why you keep getting all these Emmy nominations and why people keep tuning in.
Fun fact, Selena Gomez is a billionaire now. That came out during... There's so many extra textual things about the season that happened. Mm-hmm. Selena Gomez became a billionaire because she has this very successful makeup line. Martin Short and Meryl Streep are a couple now in real life.
Yes.
Are they really, though?
Yes.
Okay. I see differing reports that they're just close friends.
No, they're a couple. And actually, the creator of the show came out and did an interview and said that it was very unexpected that the two of them would fall in love on set. Mm-hmm. Steve Martin has commented about their relationship. Yeah, they're a couple now in real life. It's adorable. Okay. And of course, like viral videos keep going around of this cast. Like the one that went around last week was Steve Martin tap dancing with Gregory Hines in this like old clip, like I guess from the 80s or whatever. And he's incredible. Mm-hmm. Like Steve Martin can literally do everything.
So he can tap dance, and then he tap dances so hard, and then he sings.
Yes.
Without losing his breath.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's maybe why. When you see him, like, do you know that he's 79? And he looks like 20 years younger than that.
It helps that he always looked a little older.
Well, true.
He never ages.
He's going to be so flexible. Yes, right?
He looks like the same age no matter what I see him in.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It's really incredible. So the characters do some quirky things in this season. I think really takes advantage of their brand of humor. One of the things that Oliver does, Laura, is he stalks Loretta when she's in Hollywood, and because he doesn't know where she is, and he thinks maybe she has a different relationship. There's this whole sequence where Mabel teaches him misuses her teaching as one of the Youngs by stalking her on Instagram. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I was like, we have all been Oliver. We have all been Oliver. Some of us get paid for it, but it was the part where he was like talking. It was just very relatable. And he was like looking at the photos and analyzing them. Like, this arm has been in 11 of the last 14 photos. Like, whose arm is this? And it was just, and then he sets up like the fake profile to try to interact with her or whatever. And he's like, she has responded to 2 of the fake profile comments. And
his
so,
Finsta.
And I'm like, this is just something, I mean, it's just very relatable, but it also is very sweet because I think that character, like somebody had just noticed in our comments, like that character has really become a lot deeper than the first season where he was just stealing all the dips from everything. And this season I was like, okay, he's still eating dips, but there's a lot more depth there. And I think that whole relationship with Loretta, and then when she like shows up at the sister's place in Long Island, and then like different times that she shows up.
That.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. But that part was just cracking me up because I'm like, oh my God, who hasn't well, maybe Toby, but who else hasn't stalked somebody on social media like that?
Toby 100% has not done that. I guarantee it. I guarantee. When Toby said in the show a few weeks ago that he was on TikTok now, I almost fell off my damn stool. Like, I guarantee that he has not stalked anyone on social media. Toby,
did you know how to do like the accents over the vowels?
I didn't know how to do that.
I know how to do that.
Everybody needs a Mabel in their life.
I know how to do that because I work with someone with an umlaut, and
I copy and paste a lot when I have to do that.
Me too.
So, Toby, there are some pretty astonishing guest performers this season. Of course, Paul Rudd is back. Meryl Streep, Queen of Acting, is back. And then we have some other guests. Eva Longoria, Zach Galifianakis.
Gene Levy.
Gene Levy, of course. So what do you think of all these amazing guest stars? Of course, Melissa McCarthy as well. What do you think of all these guest stars that we have this season?
So first, sort of like, not actually what they're doing on the screen. Like, I always kind of feel like this must be like a really like nice set to be on. And so whenever I see people on it, I like kind of put them in my, those must be nice people category. Because otherwise they wouldn't be asked to be on it. You know, I think Eva Longoria in particular just seems like she's having a really good time, sort of like chewing the scenery, as we say. So she's really fun. I was kind of like wishing that Zach Galifianakis had a little bit more to do. He was definitely there and he had his moments, but, you know, I think that he and Martin Short could have played off each other maybe a little bit more, but, you know, whatever. But I mean, I think that's one of the things about this show is that these bit parts all get picked up by these amazing actors, right? So it's just like, it's just sort of an embarrassment of riches. You know, Melissa McCarthy is almost unrecognizable.
Yeah. I didn't even know who she was at first. And I was
Steve
like,
Martin's,
is that her?
Yeah, as Steve Martin's sister. I mean, that's part of the charm of the show, right? Is that you get to see these big names. I mean, Sting was in the first.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like this random assemblage of people, but
Scott
they
Bakula.
all seem like really good sports for the show and seem to be enjoying themselves. You know, that's one of the reasons why I like watching the show is that it does seem like it's a bunch of talented, creative people who enjoy each other's company, making something together that they're all happy to be kind of doing.
Yeah.
And then who's the woman who plays the Saturday Night Live woman who
Molly
plays
Shannon.
The executive?
Yeah,
She's
awesome.
hilarious. She's really, really good in this.
Yeah. Kevin, Toby described it as an embarrassment of riches, all these bit players. And I think, you know, Melissa McCarthy is always like phenomenal. And I agree with Toby that I do think of people differently when I see them on the show. Eva Longoria in particular, I always like, you know, you see her like doing like political stuff. You see her doing like cause
Makeup.
stuff. She always seems very icy, like in a way, like, you know, a little bit like, you know, that Desperate Housewives kind of distance, right? She's freaking great in this. So do you think this is an embarrassment of riches?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of riches, you should join us on Patreon. I mean, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not rich, but, you know.
Speaking of our riches.
Yeah. So if you join us on Patreon, you go to patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You can get all sorts of things that support us and keep us going. If you join us at the leading off level, you're going to get to hear the Crime Writers on after show. Also, if you're a patron, like you are watching not only this stream, but you'll also get to see the live stream of us talking about the after show. We're going to continue our discussion more about Only Murders in the Building. So what we don't get to in the actual regular podcast, we will get to in the after show. But you also get other great stuff. You get Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. You get our Married with Podcast advice show, and you get the Karen
We're so
Reed.
qualified to give advice to married people.
Oh yeah. Would you just knock it off? You just let me do my goddamn job. And we get Rebecca's Karen Reed Readathon.
And there's one coming out like ASAP about the 2-part Vanity Fair story that came out about Karen Reed. The first good reporting I have read on this whole damn thing. I'm so excited about it.
If you join us at the Bricker Scale level, you get an exclusive podcast there. It's Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. Laura has an experience in this latest episode dealing with a very sexy Airbnb.
Ooh.
That is a Bigfoot theme.
Yeah, the sexy Sasquatch Airbnb with the sexy Sasquatch over the bed. It was bolted to the wall so you couldn't steal it. But
what?
If
what was the
anyone wants
bathroom like in this place?
It was the bathroom that is covered in the podcast was an outhouse, but it had Bigfoot facts on the wall of the outhouse.
Oh.
There's a lot
while you're
happening.
pooping in a hole in the ground, you could read Bigfoot facts.
Yep, you could.
Amazing.
But they had motion-activated lights in there. And that
no,
was
you couldn't get me to stay there in a million fucking years. If I'm away from my bidet, I get upset. No way.
Well, I did it. And you can live vicariously through me if you join us at the Brickner skill level.
Oh, wow. If you join us at the Let's Do What We Do level, you can get episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. And if you become a deep diver, you can watch another live stream. And that's when Toby Ball gets into his deep dive with his guests. The next podcast is going to be on the book, The Sullivanians. Toby, tell us a little bit about that book and that panel.
So The Sullivanians is about a cult that formed in New York City. It was largely around people who were in psychoanalysis, but in sort of this strange way. And it got weirder and weirder and weirder. And then it just became like sort of a full-on cult. So it'll be definitely an interesting discussion. It's sort of we're trying to arrange we're trying to arrange a good date or whatever, but there'll be at least two of the following people: Sarah Krassenstein, Janet Varney, and Julia Lowry Henderson.
All right.
Well, if that changes, you better let me know. I've got to do.
I probably need to tell you right now.
He has to do producer things.
Yeah,
I have to do all of this all over again.
And we're doing it on Riverside this time, so I don't have to like pretend for a while and then switch it all to Zoom.
Yeah, there you go. It should hopefully it goes better. Hopefully it goes better.
Finally, yeah. We won't have the tech difficulties section. All right, Kevin, before we end the business section, I have a very important question for you. Do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Melissa Mack and Amber Stowe.
Wow.
Bless you.
Bless you, Melissa. Bless you, Amber. I'm so excited to induct you into the Hall of Fame of Patreon patron saints of this week that have been announced during live shows. Mm-hmm. Very exclusive, tiny group of people. You are among them. If you're interested in being qualified to be a saint, all you got to do is join our Patreon. That's all you got to do. Kevin might pick your name randomly. It's random, right?
It's random, yeah.
It's random insofar as that you look at them and you pick one.
Yes.
All right, Kevin, does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now.
You mean I'm going to fade it out?
So, Kevin, who's our next sponsor right now?
We're sponsored by Quince.
Oh, boy.
So we are kind of officially out of summer. We're into autumn. And now it's time to switch things up, move into a new season. And I think, we got to look right past Halloween. You got to start thinking about Thanksgiving and Christmas and cooler, crisper weather.
Yeah.
And that means you got to get your cashmere sweater from Quince, priced from $50.
Yes.
And Rebecca, have you been keeping them afloat with all of your sweaters you've been buying from Quince?
I've got a couple bookmarked right now, Kevin. Right now, my favorite is this very cute kind of cropped, sort of quasi off-the-shoulder one. Mm-hmm. It comes in a color called I think it's called strawberry cream. It also comes in a color called moss. And what's held me back, the only thing that's held me back is it wasn't the price, was which one to get. I love Quince so much. The quality of their cashmere for the price is incredible.
Well, I was going to say that, if you could just get all of them, maybe you should.
Wow,
thanks. I'm thinking twice about that right now, actually. So, switching seasons is a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials.
Just go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Mm-hmm. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
So, Kevin, who's the next sponsor for this podcast?
Hey, we're sponsored by Babel.
Amazing.
Are you holding back on your travel plans this holiday because you're afraid of the language gap? Well, no need to mind the gap if you have Babel. So, that sometimes when we can, in the winter holidays, we like to take a long weekend to Montreal.
Yes.
And we've kind of been reluctant to go farther north up to Quebec City.
Yes.
Because you really do have, unlike Montreal where you can get away, there's a lot of people that speak both French and English. You really got to rely on your French.
A little more,
if you're going a little up there, all right? And so there are times when I've tried to speak French to people.
Yes.
And it has gone terribly wrong.
Sure has.
with just these 10-minute lessons in a couple of weeks, I've been, I think, improving my French.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm going to be able to jaser, which is to chat with folks. I also learned what was really important is that European French differs from Canadian French.
Sure does.
The French we learned in high school, like if you wanted to go to the convenience store, you would ask, où est l'épicerie?
Okay.
But if you're in Quebec, what you actually want to do is you want to ask, où est le dépanneur?
Okay.
So it's different. All right, so I'm still working on the accent and everything, but this is great. You have some holiday plans and you're going away. Babbel's a good way to get started.
Amazing. Here's a special holiday deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for Crime Writers On listeners at babbel.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
Spelled BABBEL.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
Rules and restrictions may apply. Toby, before the break, you were mentioning that you were interested in talking a little bit about the character development in the series. What did you want to say about that?
Well, I just, when we talked about season 1, and it was like, here are 3 lonely people who kind of find each other's company through podcasting and solving a murder and stuff. And you kind of seen that as it's sort of moved along. And I thought, one of the things about this season was really about, Steve Martin's character becoming more isolated since his former girlfriend / murderer is in jail, although she escapes. They don't really hang out too much. And then there's, Martin Short's getting married, and then Sazz is killed. So it's like the people other than Mabel, who he's closest to, are all moving further away from him or have just disappeared altogether. And you see a little bit of it where he's sort of, I don't know if really reconciling with his sister, but sort of making contact with her again. So I thought that was sort of one of the things that was going on. And then Mabel, I don't know what her deal is, but she has no friends her age.
Yeah.
And she also
dresses like she has no friends her age.
Right. And her name's Mabel. So she sounds like she's from their generation. Anyway, yeah, I mean, she's like the one who doesn't really seem to have a life outside of what they're actually doing at any given time. And she kind of moves into...
She has that big bed.
Squat at that apartment.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have any stuff, where she used to have tons and tons of stuff when she lived in that one apartment. Now she's got nothing.
Yeah.
I guess it's not really a criticism, but I think it was just kind of an interesting choice all around, is that her sort of life outside of the 3 of them like barely exists. And really the only stuff you kind of see her getting is other people kind of projecting like what they think Mabel is on her. And then they're trying to, engage with that. And like you can see like Eva Longoria like doesn't really have a whole good idea of what to do. And then the studio exec is always like, well, that's so Mabel. And it's like totally not Mabel if you've been watching the show, but she just doesn't have a handle on her.
Yeah. It is interesting, Laura. Toby mentioned this, but, Steve Martin reconnects. I'm calling him Steve Martin. I can't help it. Reconnects with his sister. We sort of understand why they're not connected when we go out to Long Island. Real town on Long Island, by the way, that they went out to looks just like the one that they visited with boats in the driveway and everything. But they really sort of, to me, nailed like the parody of Long Island in a really great way. But we do meet this sister, this like long lost missing sister, played, of course, by Melissa McCarthy. So what did you think of that whole sequence, Laura?
That was one of the more fun episodes for me of this season. I felt like the decor in her house, it's like the outside, you see it, you're like, oh, this, and then you see the inside, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like 1970s shag carpet. There's this giant couch. Oliver's looking for the bar, and she's like, right this way. Let's put some Crystal Light and some vodka and shake it up. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just amazing. All the dolls, super fucking creepy. It's just like so many.
They looked like a cross between Meryl Streep and Taylor Swift.
Yes, there was a Taylor Swift doll. Remember?
Was it? Yeah.
Wearing the Travis Kelce jersey.
Yeah.
I like your dolls.
Oh, thank you. The big ones are very hard to come by now. Something with the supply chain. But yeah, I started collecting after Dawn's wedding. And then when Dina and Danielle went to DeVry, and then Dagmar, which is my youngest, the little baby, she really just left to wound me.
So I guess you replaced your children with dolls, huh?
Wow. I have never made that connection.
Yeah,
they really were going for a look, and they nailed it.
They were going for a look right down to when they're like hanging out in the boat in the driveway. Then the other characters start showing up there when they think they're in their safe house in Long Island. And then that gets even more entertaining because I think that's the scene where we have like the director, Molly Shannon's character gets like hammered. And then we have the big fight scene where like Meryl Streep shows up and they're like throwing down. And again, like that couch is like a central character in that whole part of this series.
I was acting.
Not very
and I took stage combat with Sensei Brian.
Oh, my tooth!
Oh, God. I should stop this.
Who wears a train in their own house?
No, he shouldn't.
It was just like, okay, if we're going to have like the Hollywood scenes were like, whatever, we're in a different sort of setting. This was so just classically funny and quirky and bizarre and just so many things, like so many stereotypes were leaned into. I really enjoyed that episode.
To me, there were 3 really strong standout episodes this season. And every season, it seems that there's one that's like, you know, like the standout one. The 3 in this were the Long Island one, the camera one, which I know Kevin wants to talk about a little bit, which was incredible, just absolutely incredible. And I loved the stuntman bar episode only because it just like had so much opportunity to just do so many things, not just because it brought Paul Rudd back, but because, you know, they had Steve Martin lying on a table and they threw a wake for him and they smashed stuff on his head and like just like in Dodgeball, it is funny to watch people get hit by things. So Kevin, that one big format breaking episode though has to do with the Brothers-Sisters and the history of their life. And we see almost the whole episode, if not the whole episode, through the lenses of their cameras. That was incredible.
And yes, right. And these different surveillance cameras. Yeah.
What did you think about that episode?
Well, I mean, I really liked it. I mean, certainly, I think you pointed out, like each season there's always like sort of one episode that is so ingenious. It just breaks format in a wonderful way. So I think Blow Up is the name of that episode, I believe. I don't know if anybody caught it, but all the episodes are also titles of movies like Adaptation and Once Upon a Time in the West, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the greatest episodes I had was the one, I don't know if it was season 1.
The White Room one?
The White Room, but that's season 2, I believe. But season 1 was where it was from the perspective, is Teddy the deaf kid, the deaf character? Yeah, where it was just all, like, that was really great. There were, like I said, a couple of episodes. I will say that, I don't know if this is a critique, but it took me really just sort of like the 5th episode to see how these things were sort of coming together, because the storylines of like the Westies, we had like a Westies episode, and then we didn't like really come back to them. Yeah, they're like the tailies, and then the stuntmen, then we don't really like see them. And it wasn't later like all these things start to come together. I was like, oh, okay, now I see it. I was a little afraid like they were just going to be extraneous one-offs, and like, why did we go down that alley? And why the only one that really was sort of set aside and didn't really drive much of the narrative was the trip to Long Island, because you could cut that out and, you know, that really wouldn't have like changed the mystery. But in and of itself, it was very entertaining. So I'm glad it stayed in.
I'm glad it stayed in too, because it just, I think anytime you mix something up and you have a different setting, you put characters in the mix, but like it was just so beautifully done in so many ways. And at the end, I think it was something kind of moving about Charles and his sister's relationship. I mean, they're not a fit.
I mean, other than the fight, which was pretty amazing in that episode, the one thing that I really loved was how they called back to these plot holes.
Yes.
They're all over the script. For instance, who poisoned Winnie? You thought it was Sting. You know what? It wasn't Sting, and then you just dropped it.
I assumed it was Jan.
Wrong. Look at the note on your door.
End the podcast or I will end you. See this smudge mark? That was written by a left-handed person.
How could you know that?
Because I studied handwriting when I played Mark Antonio in the unproduced pilot, The Calligrapher's Wife.
And we talked about this after our review of season 1. It was like, I don't think it was overlooked. I think it was intentionally left as a plot hole, and they're going to come back to it next season. And they haven't yet. But I still believe, they're calling out the plot hole in the plot, and then they don't resolve it this time either.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's bad writing. I think it's really intentional. I'm still holding out hope they're going to bring this together in a very clever way.
To me, that's very podcast, though. You say that the show is not about a podcast. To me, it still is. They had the theme about them making a movie about the podcast, which is very podcast. And Toby, we're podcasters. We read the social media about our show and sometimes respond to it, right, in the show. So to me, there was this very meta thing about them pointing out things that people have said about the show on the show, because that's been a critique of the show, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I was sort of referencing what Kevin was talking about, which is they sit them down, the actors do, and we took a close look at your podcast, and, there's all these plot holes, and this will point towards something, and it's a nice little kind of meta moment. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek critique of their earlier seasons. And yeah, I mean, at least the way these guys are making a podcast, like I am always, my mind is a little blown by how people think or portray how podcasts are actually made, because there's not going to be anything in any of these shows that are going to be reflective of what Kevin's going to do starting in about an hour for the next 5 hours of getting this together for tomorrow, and the actual stuff that goes into making a podcast. But the way they seem to make a podcast is at that time just saying stuff into their phones, and then somebody's going to get to and throw it together. So of course, if you're doing it like that,
that's how I make my podcast.
That doesn't end up panning out like Serial, the first Serial, where it's you're doing this driving to Best Buy, and then it turns out, well, actually that wasn't even a thing. You don't even have to worry about that. That was nothing. So anyway, that's a lot of words saying not very much. I thought that was when that happened. I thought that was kind of clever.
There was a moment, Toby, that I really loved, which was Mabel's realization that she is a podcast producer.
Right.
Yes. It was kind of sad.
Wait, what do I do?
You do this.
Well, what is this exactly?
God only knows.
Well, we have a podcast, so you are a podsmith, a crime-fluencer.
How about podcast producer?
I'm a podcast producer. I'm a podcast producer.
No, but it's more like, I'm a podcast producer.
Yeah, you don't have to overdo it. You could just say, oh, I'm a podcast producer.
I'm a podcast producer. Why is that so scary to say out loud?
Maybe it's because you're a producer on a podcast about a crime that has 40,000 fucking suspects.
I love that detective.
I love her too. Oscar winner, right?
Yeah.
I also love the whole thing about being a podcast producer. Laura, do you know that there's this whole thing about men who are podcast producers not putting that on their dating bios because it's such an embarrassing profession and it was turning women off? Yes.
Oh, no.
Women were not responding to the hinges or whatever when someone said they were podcast.
I tried.
So there was a whole article about it.
I didn't see any podcast. I would have responded when I was in that world.
There's a whole article about
how
they changed their profession to multimedia maker and stuff like that to not have the words podcast producer. Laura, there are a couple funny gimmicks in the show.
What multimedia? It's just audio.
I know. Listen, it's
audio
video now too.
Engineering.
Exactly. So, we have all these funny little gimmicks in the show. Obviously, we have Mr. Christmas Swole, who is our... but then we also have Eva Longoria's multi-tool, which as a callback. What do you think about that?
I want one of Eva. I would like to have one of those multi-tools from Eva Longoria, especially at the end when it's they're trying to figure out how to use it. I'm like, oh my God, these are some of the fancy new age lady products that are on the market. But
a nail gun that doubles as a vibrator, that just sounds, that is so dangerous.
But when when they're trying to shoot and it shoots somebody off, it's that's fantastic. But I like how it comes out all the time. Oh, what's that? Nail gun? And yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Shoot somebody off.
What could possibly go wrong if you had a nail gun and a vibrator that were combined into one?
What could possibly go right is my question.
You could nail it shut.
It's like a chastity belt or something.
This is going off the rails. Laura, but there are many side characters in the show. Yes. What do you think about the fact that this cast just seems to be expanding and they give side characters shit to do?
I love the side characters. Like Howard this season, you know, he's got a pig at one point. He's going to make a podcast about animals jobs. I'm like, I will join your podcast with you. We can go on. I'm a cat detective. We can partner up. We've got the angry lady in the elevator. You know, everywhere you turn, you're like, and then you've got all of the people on the other side of the building. And like, you've got the guy in the Christmas sweater. You've got the guy with the eye patch. You've got, all sorts of people doing interesting things. You've got Eva Longoria's bed.
Yep.
I mean, that was a character.
Eva Longoria's bed?
Eva Longoria's bed. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah. So Toby, is there anybody that you have a dream cast for the show that you really wish was on the show at some point?
Terry Garr died yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think she would have been awesome to have been on the show, although I think she might have had health problems from the time the show started, but she was such
she had, I think, muscular or MS, right?
Oh, did she? Yeah. I hadn't. She was like, I think this might sort of be the age gap, but like when I was in high school in the beginning of college, when there wasn't anything on TV late at night, so you'd watch David Letterman, and she was consistently like the best guest who was on there all the time. Like she and David Letterman had a hilarious like relationship, sort of flirty, and she was not afraid of like giving it back to him and stuff. And she's been in just so many great things like Young Frankenstein and et cetera, et cetera.
Close
and
Encounters.
she was actually in Star Trek, which is kind of weird. Anyway, so I just made that little note because she seemed like another sort of celebrity who was in that sort of realm of niceness and talent that seems to be attracted to this show.
Yeah. I was disappointed we had Eugene Levy, but not Catherine O'Hara. I'd love to see her on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to do a callback. We talked about Divine Joy Randolph as Detective Donna Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
anyone who has not seen The Holdovers should watch that film for her performance. She is incredible in that movie and 100% deserved that Oscar. And it was funny. We were watching it recently and I'd forgotten that she won the Oscar for it. And I was watching it and I was like, she should have won an Oscar for this. And then we was like, oh, she did.
She did win an Oscar.
Absolutely deserved.
She had a great acceptance speech.
Absolutely well deserved.
Hi, my name's Patrick Adams. You may know me as Mike Ross on the TV series Suits.
And I'm Sarah Rafferty, and I play Donna Paulson on Suits.
And we have a podcast called Sidebar, where every week we watch and discuss an episode of the show.
Because here's the thing, neither of us have really watched it.
That's true, at least until now.
So we're going to cover all 9 seasons,
share behind-the-scenes stories,
and talk to our co-stars and friends like Gina Torres and Aaron Korsh.
So look, if you love Suits, amazing. This podcast is for you.
And if you've never watched Suits, also amazing. You can join us and we'll watch it together.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun. You can find Sidebar on the SiriusXM app, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode.
Everybody sleeps, but no two people sleep alike. At Coop Sleep Goods, we celebrate the way you sleep differently. We believe everyone deserves a great night's sleep with their own pillow. And the adjustable, customizable Coop pillow makes it easy. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or even a starfish, we've got the perfect pillow for you. Crafted with our innovative memory foam and microfiber fill, our hypoallergenic pillows adjust to you, not the other way around. Just tailor the fill for the perfect fit. Add some in, take some out, until your pillow's just right for you. See why luxury hotels and spas worldwide feature Coop Sleep Goods, and why we have tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. With our 100-night risk-free trial, you've got nothing to lose, except those sleepless nights. Get 25% off your first order when you visit coopsleepgoods.com/comedy. That's COOP sleepgoods.com/comedy.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Only Murders in the Building Season 4? Here we are with our review. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Only Murders in the Building Season 4?
This is thumbs up. Shocker. This is one of those shows that is always so fun when it comes on and there's a new season, because even friends of mine that don't watch like traditional true crime or crime shows that we watch are watching this. This is one of those shows you can talk to people about, But it's also like kind of going back into this environment in the Arconia where it's like a cozy mystery. We know I love a cozy mystery. You've got quirky characters. I don't really even pay too much attention. I think Toby was the one who said this, or maybe Kevin. I don't really pay too much attention to the whole mystery plot because it's all going to work out in the end. I'm just sort of along for the ride. I'm like Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez. There's so many scenes in this that you're just like, I would like to hang out there. I would like to live there. I would like to walk a pig. I mean, what else?
It's a cozy place, man. It's a cozy place.
Yeah.
It's a cozy place. So big thumbs up for this. I'm sad it's over this season, although the next season, which has been teased, looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. So I'm sure we'll be back here.
What do you think, Toby Ball? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this season of Only Murders in the Building?
Well, Rebecca Lavoie. Yeah, I mean, I obviously it's a thumbs up. I mean, I feel like this is almost like comfort food. It's like you kind of know what you're getting into. The characters are all, I just kind of feel like they feel fleshed out, right? And not in a way that gets annoying after a while. It's like they seem like real people. As I've said 10 zillion times, Steve Martin's probably my favorite entertainer,
famous
performer,
person,
whatever, of all time. And it's always great to see him. One of the few disappointments I had was that he often gets sort of a set piece where he does something that he's really good at that almost nobody else is good at. And he didn't really have that in this one. There's a little bit where he's doing a little physical comedy that Kevin talked about in the main, but it wasn't like when he was doing the how many whatever with the triplets and
which of the Pickwick
triplets
did it?
Or the baby, or this scene at the season one with the baby
carriage and stuff.
The baby carriage.
Just being able to show off his just talents in different places. Even just pick up a banjo. So anyway, yeah, it's a thumbs up. This is just a very dependable franchise. It's sort of low stress watch. I think you could do worse than chilling out with this for a few hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up. This is a really smart show. And the thing that we don't really talk about in the performances, they're very funny, but there's such a sense of vulnerability in the characters that one probably would not have otherwise expected if you said, it's going to be Martin Short, and it's going to be Steve Martin, and it's going to be the girl from Wizards of Waverly Place, and I can't remember her name.
The billionaire with the makeup line.
These guys are just so fantastic what they do. The writing is great, and they do what they need to do, right? And I'm glad we get to talk about this more in the after show. Steve Martin is incredible. Selena Gomez, she plays small so well that sometimes she's got these really super sarcastic cutting lines and she's not even opening her mouth, right? It's just this vicious mumble. They've just all fleshed out such great characters. And even though, the mystery is different, and it continues to evolve, and no, I didn't guess it, and I don't really need to. I just really like watching this. I think they're all great, and I'm glad that there's a season 5, and I wish there'd be 10 more, but I know that there won't be. I can't wait till we're all back here talking about season 5 in 2025.
Yeah, this is a huge thumbs up for me. I actually enjoyed this season more than I enjoyed season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Season 1 was perfect. Season 3 was great because we had the musical stuff. This season, I absolutely loved. I loved this sort of the fact that there were 3 format breaky standout episodes. I love, and I don't think this is enough of a spoiler for me to not say it, I love they figured out a way to get Mabel back in the building. I'm really happy about that because when she was looking for an apartment elsewhere last season, I was really depressed about that. I'm you got to figure out a way to get her into the Arconia because she belongs there. She absolutely belongs there. They brought in a huge cast for this season, a huge cast, considering that last season was about a play and there were tons of people. This season they had the Westies, which are the tailies on Lost. We went out to Long Island, we met some people. We met so many new people, and you would think that would send a show a little bit astray, and you'd be okay, this is getting gimmicky, this is getting to be a lot. They somehow still managed to keep it incredibly intimate. That has a lot to do with the set design, which I would love to talk about in the after show. It has a lot to do with the production design, the art direction, the lighting, the sort of freshness but coziness of it. They really, really have kept a coherent product, for lack of a better word, together in this, and it's just one that I would return to again and again. There are very few shows I watch on TV and I'm not tempted to pick up my phone and look at it when I'm watching one of them. This is one of them. So yeah, huge thumbs up for me for Only Murders in the Building season 4. All right, Laura, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, do we have a cat of the week this week.
We do. And it's living.
No.
We do.
Oh, my goodness. So this is a cat in France. I was walking into my office the other day when I saw one of my Exeter people, Christy Utter, and she is an avid listener of ours. And she was like, I'm a little bit behind because I was in France. And so I'm a few episodes back on Crime Writers On. And then she was like, but when we were in France, there was a hotel cat. So they were on the first floor of the hotel. And this cat just came like wandering in the middle of the night and hung out with them and ended up sleeping on their bed. And she was like, you know, a lot of people wouldn't want a cat that they didn't know sleeping on their bed in a foreign country. She was all for it. I'm like, I would be all for it. So I was very excited to hear about this cat that just kind of wandered in and hung out and slept with them at like 3 a.m.
Amazing. She should go to Istanbul, which apparently
like a
is
Ripley
full
cat.
of cats.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
a
It's a
cool
Ripley
looking
cat,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a beautiful cat.
Yeah.
All right, Laura Bricker, of course, folks can email us if they want to send us their pets of the week or any kind of pet to be a cat of the week. But if they want to find you on social media, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Twitter and Instagram.
What about you, Toby Ball? How can you be found?
I'm at TobyBallNH on TikTok and Twitter, and I'm at TobyBall603 on the Instagram.
What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
And if you want to follow me everywhere, you can follow me at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on all the socials. But I really encourage you to join our incredible community and our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. Some of the best people I've ever met belong to that group. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll get the Readathon. You'll get the CWO After Show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons. Our editor is the wonderful Livy Burdett. Executive producer of this show is the amazing Kevin Flynn.
That's me.
This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also find it scary to say out loud, I'm a podcast producer. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Later. Rebecca, stop doing that.
Okay.
Stop trying to
I'm trying
be
to
a
make
producer.
you make the music a little lower is all.
But it's not in the mix.
I know,
you
but they
just
can
have
hear
to
it.
let it go. You must let it go, okay?
Okay.
This is why you want to watch the live stream, because
This is
you
all
want to
being
see
exposed to the people.
all being
I
exposed.
was just doing a little finger thing at the bottom.
Do that again. Do that again. Stop it. All right? The train has left.
I love you, Kevin.
Like, you really have to let go, okay?
Toby's
Thank
gone.
you so much.
Toby's checked out.
He's
Toby
so
can't
upset
take it.
that he left.
He lost
This
Toby.
music has tipped him over the edge because it's the first time he's ever heard
like,
it.
what is this
I'm
music?
back.
There he is.
Thought I was in the wrong place for a second.
Oh my God. The wheels are coming off.
Partners in Crime Media.
Hey, I'm Yara Shahidi, and I'm the host of The Optimist Project. This is the podcast that asks, what gives you hope? Each week, I sit down with changemakers you may or may not know, from comedy, music, academia, and more, to uncover what inspires them to create a better tomorrow. Join us as we find out ways that we can cultivate optimism in our own lives. You can find The Optimist Project wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode.